In this video we are reading Reddit. What is the worst secret your soul is keeping from you, but that you actually know? Please consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. My ex, and the cheating. She thinks I found out when I looked at her phone, but I knew about 2 months earlier when she sent me a pic of herself watching Netflix in bed. I don't think she realized that the dude's face was 100% visible reflected in the laptop. After that it was a matter of me being in denial and trying to fix things. When we were in the hospital for some weird pain that I had, uninsured, and the doctors thought it might be cancer, I lost it a bit. She was so brave for me, but her mother called. She went into the bathroom to talk, but she didn't know that the sound echoed pretty loudly into the room. I heard her break down, sobbing, telling her mum she didn't know how we were going to pay for treatment and that it looked really bad. I'll never tell her I heard her, but God, it was heartbreaking. When she came out you wouldn't even know she was even upset. She hid it so well. She sat right down and told me everything was going to be fine with such determination and such certainty. Literally took out her computer then and there and started making a freaking spreadsheet of our finances to fit in cancer. I knew how much she loved me in that moment and how important it was for her that she was brave for me. I don't know why, but I got so calm after that. I haven't broken down like that since, even with worse news. I guess she makes me strong. God, I freaking love her. A girl I dated a few years back had just graduated with her bachelor's, so I took her out for a night on the town. Her and our friends got absolutely demolished, and since this was before Uber, I volunteered to BDD, so around 2 AM she's tanked. We head out and she wants Crystal burgers. Very adamant about that, so I stop by Crystal's and order a steamer pack so I can have some too and then have leftovers. She eats somewhere around 8. I get her home, get her into her bed and she immediately passes out. I am sitting next to her watching some TV when I smell something. I notice that she has just shit herself. She is one of those people who would be so ashamed of herself if anyone found out, so I just left. I called her the next day and told her I dropped her off, got her some water and headed home. Never mentioned her shitting herself or anything, so to this day she thinks she did it in her sleep after I left. I could have stayed and helped her clean it up, and I probably should have, but she would have cried over that and avoided me sporadically for weeks. I knew for 1.5 years about my engagement ring and never told him until after he proposed. He was not so good at hiding. My wife dropped my iPhone in a porta-potty toilet. Luckily it has been so used there was a large pile of shit which gently held the phone above the liquid. She cleaned it off and gave it back to me. A year later I upgraded and gave her my old phone. She insisted on purchasing a new cover even though I had a high-end OtterBox. I never understood why until one of the kids told on her. Even though we had been married for 25 years, my wife and I always invented stupid private jokes between each other. I was lamenting the fact that we had fostered a Siamese cat from an adoption group that eventually got adopted, and I really missed her. At one point, we were looking through the website of the local pound, and a Siamese came up named Montague. The photo that they took of Montague was epic. A classic applehead Siamese. He was neutered, about 5 years old, and had horribly crossed eyes. Whoever took the photograph of him made him look both proud, distinguished, and adorably insane. Like some crazy dude that comes into the bar as a regular, claims he's the Emperor of the United States of America, and everybody buys him around, because even though he is clearly crazy, he is also very charming. We started making up all the stories about Montague in a spoof of the world's most interesting man. Week after week, we checked to see if he had been adopted, but nobody wanted a crazy-looking cross-eyed Siamese cat. Everyone at the pound said he was affectionate, and had been there for quite some time. Sadly, this would be our last private joke together. My wife, who had a terminal illness, suddenly gotten much worse and passed away rather rapidly. We thought we had more time together, but she had sarcoidosis, and her lungs had already been weakened by repeated pneumonia. When she got the flu, because she was on immunosuppressants for her condition, this is what did her in. She went into a coma, and died a week later. My sister helped me with the funeral and taking care of a lot of things, including contacting everyone in her phone contacts on her cell phone. She asked me about why the Alexandria Pound would be trying to contact my late wife via voicemail. Apparently, my wife had applied to adopt Montague as a surprise gift. She paid the adoption fee and had scheduled a visit to adopt him, but she died before the appointment date. Sadly, my wife put it in her name only, and the people at the pound were pretty rude about it. Like to adopt Montague, I'd have to pay another adoption fee, and they were mad that she didn't show up, and at the time it was chaos I couldn't deal with. My sister gave them an earful and they told her to go to hell. That ended that. I hope Montague eventually found a loving family. She smokes when I'm not home. I know this, because I always move the router to the window where the signal's best. When I come home the router is in a different position away from the window. I put it back without her knowing and call her out for smoking. She has no idea how I keep finding out. My soon-to-be ex-wife met another guy about a year and a half ago. She was so bad at hiding it that I thought she wanted to get caught posting romantic stuff on her Instagram when we hadn't been romantic in a long time. Confronted her, lied even with solid evidence. A few months later stuff starts disappearing from the house. Pretty obvious that she's moving out. Then we started to have no money every month. And I have a pretty okay job. Realized she was stealing money basically by paying her bills twice a month with 3-4x the minimum payment and not paying mine. Let it go on for a bit and finally confronted her. She doesn't admit to it. I finally just pull my check from our joint account and she says she's leaving, but is going to be homeless. The next day she had changed her Facebook back to her maiden name and had a picture of her and the other guy at their new place. I don't know if this counts. Was a prostitute and was in some adult films, and worked as an exotic dancer when young and hungry. Retired. Bought a food truck. I loved the coffee and grilled cheese sandwiches. Fell in love. Doesn't think I know. Doesn't know I don't care. I'll never tell. Update. P.S. How did I find out? Years ago a now deceased friend of my someone who'd been in the life too, told me, showed me proof. The person I fell in love with is the sum total of their life preceding. Middle-class morality is not a luxury everyone can afford. It's not a value system everyone embraces regardless. It's okay by me if people, in part or entirely, choose to reinvent themselves as they see fit. He spent a ton of money on Bruins tickets this year. Whenever he got tickets to a match he claimed he got them for free through work or downplays the cost. But I know he paid for them. I don't really mind since he can spend his money how he wants. But it's funny to me that he thinks I wouldn't realize he's spending a few $100 every time he goes to a game. She had sex with my boss before we knew each other, before I had been hired into the company. I'm not mad about it or anything. Everyone has a past. But she carefully dances around ever coming into my work now and I'm careful not to bring him up. We were long distance when we first started dating. The one time she came up to where I lived for 4 days. But I had to work during one of the days. When I was gone she had to take a dump and clog at the toilet. She couldn't get it to plunge and was freaking out, so she went to the kitchen and got a fork and a plastic bag and dug the turds out of the bowl and threw everything in the dumpster out back. She called her friend panicking and the friend thought it was hilarious. Friend told me about it one night when the girl had left the room after we moved in together. I find it funny, but don't want to embarrass her. Her ex is in town and she is secretly meeting him behind my back. I know this, because her location is always shared with me due to her habit of forgetting where her phone is. Reddit. What is the worst secret your so is hiding from you? She has sports tickets for my birthday. What? At night, once I go to bed, he binge watches Gossip Girl. Okay, so I found out my fiancé was wanting to ask me to marry him, but wanted to get a super expensive ring for me so it was taking time to save up. I don't give a crap about that type of thing. I'd marry him without a ring. That's not what's important to me. So I went to his mum and told her what I knew and she told me we should go look at rings together so maybe I could pick something less expensive so she could tell him we had been shopping and I had fallen in love with a ring that he could afford. I know. I'm sneaky. Anyway, I found an incredible ring that was normally $500, but on sale for $100. I bought the ring and she called him and told him what she did. He was so happy. He asked me to marry him on Christmas Eve and it was by far one of the best days of my life. He has no clue that I was involved in the purchase. So, he's keeping the secret that he doesn't know that I know. She is hiding baseball tickets for when my favorite team comes into town. She is waiting to give them to me on my birthday. Back when I was first starting to make my artwork public, I had a Kickstarter campaign to fund a tour. I had just started dating my but he gave a relatively significant amount of money anonymously. He tripped up in selecting his backer's reward, an original piece mailed to his house. When I saw the address, I definitely didn't suspect his roommates were just super supportive of my art. This is a past tense secret, but my girlfriend at the time decided to surprise me by buying a holiday to Brussels for us over my 30th birthday. I accidentally intercepted the hotel confirmation email, so decided it was a good time to propose, as I'd been considering it for about 6 months. Act all surprised when she tells me. Then when we're having dinner in the restaurant on the first night, I get down on one knee and propose, celebrating our 3-year wedding anniversary at the end of next month. So this is slightly different from the actual question, but I have a feeling I will never find a better place to tell this, so here goes. My grandmother got remarried when my dad was in middle school, after divorcing my bio-grandfather. This was in the late 70s. Anyway, step-grandpa, SG, was a cool dad for a while, at least up until my dad and his older brother got into college. After that he started going off the emotional deep end, read, angry and borderline abusive. For a long time, both SG and grandma were in the, redacted for privacy, business. My dad and uncle both became attorneys and went to work at what was now the family company. Anyway, many years later, my dad and uncle are no longer working with SG and grandma, and my mother manages most of the company. One day, a business associate quietly pulls my mother aside and says that they saw SG in public with a much younger man. She tells my father and uncle, who do some digging around and find out he had used company funds to buy cars, apartments, etc. for multiple 20-something men. He was in his early 70s. They are understandably shocked, and they all go over to my grandma's house when SG is not there to break it to her. Her response, "Oh yeah, I've known that for years." She had suspected he was gay before they were married, but nobody talked about that sort of thing at the time or in her family. She knew about the affairs, and she had a public health worker come to her front door to inform her he had HIV, and give her a test as well. She declined to tell anyone this for close to 15 years. Anyway, they managed to convince her to divorce him, which took ages and ages. So, that's probably the worst secret that's ever been kept in my family. He has been hiding he's autistic from me for 10 years. Should clarify it's a long-running on-again off-again thing between us. But even when it's off we were still good friends. He suffered abusive therapy and, because of it, thinks hiding his autism is the most important thing. Except that's like trying to hide an elephant in a bathroom, and he's not always super high-functioning. So it's always a weird charade of me pretending he's not autistic while busting my ass to gently handle that. I have no idea how to talk to him about it. I know he has a formal diagnosis. He was so traumatized from institutional medical abuse in the name of therapy that even mentioning it or acknowledging it can cause him to have a meltdown. He thinks if I knew, I wouldn't love him anymore. But I've known 4 years and I still love him. I like him just how he is. I just want things to be easier and less scary for him, and I don't know how to help most of the time, because he won't admit the problem. I had a girlfriend who purposefully gave me bad notes for class so her average would be higher than mine. She's been studying abroad for a year and is planning on coming home 5 days earlier to surprise me. Her lupus is getting much worse, much more quickly than she had expected, and I'm afraid that she won't have much time left before her kidneys or liver fails. Apparently there's a ton of scar tissue forming already even though she was diagnosed 2 weeks ago. My heart is filled completely with guilt, because I'm still in school and she works long, 12-hour nights as a nurse, doing brutal, exhausting work. She tells me she's tired once in a while, but she's always so happy to see me, and she always tells me that she's going to take care of me and support me endlessly until I'm done with engineering school. I feel so useless, because I don't have much money and it's hard for me to take care of her. Yet she'll still take me out to eat so often and buys nice clothes for me when I would otherwise only be able to shop at thrift stores or clearance aisles. She loves me and tells me about how much potential I have, even if my grades aren't great and I'm struggling to do well in engineering. I feel that I'm part of the reason why she got sick. Maybe she feels she has to work so much, sometimes 4 to 6 days non-stop without days off in between, to support the people in her life and also make time for me. The worst part is that she always smiles when we spend time together and still asks if I want to go hiking or play tennis. Things that I love doing that she sometimes objects to, even if she's barely slept or eaten and is still physically exhausted. I worry she forces herself to for my sake. All I tell her is that I'm tired and I'd like to read comic books with her or put on Netflix, her favorites, and lay in bed and nap with her, because I don't know how much longer we'll be able to do that together. She's gained about 20 pounds from water retention, For a slim, petite little thing, it's almost a fifth of her weight, and her legs have swollen so much that she can't bend her knees or walk without intense pain. I couldn't bear to see her unconscious in her hospital room, hooked up to IVs and machines, and it breaks my heart. I've known that I was going to marry her for a long time now, but I'm certain that I'm going to be by her side no matter what happens, whether we have 5 months left together or 50 years. Please subscribe if you like the video. It really helps the channel to grow. Adios.